Alright, so I'd like to go through one of these free response number 7 questions with you. This is the same example you saw on the home page for 27.1. This is from the 2002 AP exam. Again, this is always going to be question number 7 on the exam, and it's going to be about harmonizing a melody. They give us a melody line all the way throughout, that's complete, and then they fill out the bass line and chords for us just for the first phrase and a half. This is 4 phrases long. Each phrase ends with the cadence on the fermata. What you need to do is create a bass line with Roman numerals to complete the rest of the example. So first you should take a look at the second phrase, which is already halfway done for you. Always look at the cadence points first. At this cadence point, we have an F sharp. We are in the key of G major. So decide what type of cadence you want that to be. It can't be an authentic cadence because that F sharp does not fall into a 1 chord. So our best option is probably to make a half cadence right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that cadence first. And I'm just going to put some random notes right here for now. And I'm going to make this a 5 chord, so that means it's going to end on a D. Okay, half cadence, put the Roman numeral in there, which is going to be a 5. That's all set for you. If you want, you can put a 5/7. That's always nice to use there. So now we need to fill in these other 2 points. What can go to a 5? We have a G, which could give us a 1 chord. That's very possible. What else could we make out of a G? What normally goes to a 5? A 2 is always a great chord to go to a 5. That would be an A, which we can't really use there. We could use a 2/7 chord, but it's best to stay away from 7th chords other than the 5/7. What else can go to a 5? A 4 chord could also go to a 5, and that would give us a C, so we could do a C chord right there. That's what I'm going to do. I like that. So let's put a C right there and make that a 4. And then what could we put in between a 5 and a 4? A 1 would work best, and we can definitely do that. So I will put the 1 right there. There's our first phrase. Now you have to double check. Look at the relationship between this bass line and the soprano. You want them to always move in contrary motion when possible. So right here we have a nice contrary motion there. That works out nicely. This stays the same, so we have oblique motion, which is fine, and then contrary still. It's okay if they move in the same direction, you just want it to be overall contrary motion. Lastly, check for any hidden or parallel octaves. We do have an octave here, but it resolves itself fine. Here we have a 5th, and that's fine as well. The soprano leaps right here, but we're going in opposite direction. So that works out wonderfully. Now if you wanted to, you could make this maybe a 1/6 to just change it up a bit, make it a bit more interesting. Although I think, actually yes, let's do that. That would actually be the better choice because look at this chord right here. We have the C natural resolving very nicely to that. Remember that in a 5/7 chord, all 5/7 chords must resolve correctly. So it was good that we checked that because that fa right there has to resolve to mi, which is why we must have that on the 1/6. It must go to the B. That's a good point, good lesson to learn. Go through and circle all the 5/7 chords, maybe even before you start, so that you remind yourself this has to resolve correctly. Okay, so what do we have here? Let's look at the next phrase. Scrolling down, our next phrase ends on this D. So what could we end that on? We could end it on a half cadence again, or we could do a perfect authentic cadence, not a perfect authentic cadence, an inauthentic cadence. So let's do that. I'm actually going to go over here first and do this. The stems of your notes do not matter in this example. So this is going to be a 1 here, my IAC. What about here? We have a C sharp. Now the C sharp, whenever we have that, it's a chromatic pitch, okay? Chromatic pitches mean that we have secondary functions. Therefore, this is going to be a secondary function. How do we know what it is? Well, the C sharp is the raised fourth in the overall key of G. Therefore, because we always have memorized at this point that the raised fourth is a 5 of 5, we can assume that that is going to be a 5 of 5. What would our 5 of 5 be? It would be the 5 of G is D. It would be A, C sharp, E, G, which works out. So I'm going to put that right there. And then this chord would be a 5, if you want to make it a 5/7 of 5. This is going in opposite direction. That works up very nicely. We have another C sharp here, so we could actually go in and fill that out as well. And maybe this time, just to change things up from that, let's make it, how about we make it a 5/4/3 of 5. And we know that it then always has to go to its temporary tonic, which, oh, that's a mistake for right there, huh? This has to go to the temporary tonic, so that actually has to be a 5 chord. So we have to change that and make it a 5. This has to be the same thing. There we go. So we're halfway through phrase 2. Now let's fill in the missing pieces. Let's go back here. We always want to start the chord after the cadence back on a 1. Okay, that's just a rule of thumb. Always start it on a 1 chord. So we're going to go back here. I want this to move in contrary motion, so I'm going to put that G on the higher G. And that will give us a 1 chord. What do we have here? We have a G again, but we cannot make a 1 chord again, okay? You do not want to repeat any of the Roman numerals over a bar line. So we have a G and a B. What we could do is actually make this a half note and have a G, B, B in there, or we could do 2 separate chords. Now, a G, B, we cannot make it a 1 chord, but we could maybe do, what would an E chord be? That would be a 6 chord. But then the 6 can't go to the 5 of 5. So that's not going to work either. So what we can do here, well, this is what we can do. We'll do a 6 chord on this, or we could do a 4. The options are endless. Let's do, how about a 4 chord? Sounds good. So let's do a 4. Oh, can't do that. Look what we have. G, B, D. C, E, G. So that is not going to be an option for us. So what if we try the 6 chord? 6 chord, and then on this we have a B. So what we could do is the 6 wants to go to a 4, so we could actually make that a 4/7 chord. That's an option. 6 also tends to go to 2, but we can't do that because that's not going to match that note. So what I'm going to do, just to make life simple for us right now, is I am going to make that the 4/7 chord. Okay, 4/7 isn't great, but I don't want to spend forever on this. So moving on, we need to connect this 5 to the 5/7 of 5, and we have an E. What could that be? Well, 5 likes to go to 1. 5 can also go to 6. So that would be a great deceptive motion. But then the 6 wouldn't be able to go here. So I am actually going to put this on a 1 chord. And I'm going to call this E. I would circle that and call that an accented neighbor tone. Okay, and that will still work. Whoops. So that'll be our 1 chord. And there is our second phrase. Now, is this really great? I don't really like that 4/7 chord, so I would probably work on a way to fix that a bit. You also want to, at some point, put a 6/4 chord in. If you use a 6/4 chord and it's correct, you will get that bonus aesthetic point. So that's always something you want to make sure that you do. Right here, we want to start back on the 1 again. So I'll put the 1 there. You can either work backwards or forwards. It doesn't really matter. I like to do kind of a mixture of both. Like I know that I want to end this on a perfect authentic cadence. So I would put a G here. And what's our common PAC ending? 1, 6, 4, 5, 1. So if you can make that happen, I recommend doing that. I would put this on the D, and I'm actually going to make that a half note. So here's my 5, 7 right here, going to 1. And then here, I can easily put my 1, 6, 4 right there. Put these random notes here for a second. My 1, 6, 4 right there. 1, 6, 4, 5, 7, 1. The 1, 6, 4 happens on a beat, which is great. There we have it. And then we have to figure out what these chords would be. We're back to the C natural. Don't let that accidental confuse you. It's not chromatic. It's just a complementary accidental telling us that it is no longer sharped from the previous measure. So we have a C. We could go to a 4 chord. That would be nice. So let's do that. And we don't want to do that. Look at that motion right there, moving in the same motion. So maybe for this, I will change it up and put it on. Oh, you know what you can do right here? This would be great. Let's put another 6/4 chord in there. So we have a pedal 6/4, 4, 6, 4, moving to the 1. That is lovely, and then we just need to connect these 2 chords. Remember, before a cadential, we really want to have a predominant, so either a 4 chord or a 2 chord. The 2 chord would work out lovely right here, so that is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to invert it because that's always a nice touch for the 2 chord. So right there, I will put a 2, 6, and that leads us right into that cadential very nicely. Okay, this would be a very good example of a 9 out of 9. Again, the only part I would actually reconsider is that 4, 7, and that 6. Avoid using 7th chords unless it's a 7 diminished 7 or if it's a 5, 7. We love the 5, 7s. And again, you also have to go back and make sure that your 5, 7s are resolved correctly, which I actually did not do. But this looks like it's okay because we have so to do. This secondary dominant does count as a 5, 7 as well, but that doesn't matter. That one is resolved correctly, as is this one. So we're okay, but you do want to put that on your checklist to do. Check for parallel motion. We don't want to have any of that. Make sure you don't have any direct motion. Keeping them in contrary motion will avoid any direct octaves or fifths. And I think that's about it. Okay, so now go and do your homework assignment and try 2 of these out on your own.